Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And once again we're talking about immigration because for some reason it is the one issue that, well, it's not the one issue, there's loads of stuff that no one wants to do anything about, but it is the most impactful one that nobody wants to do anything about when they're in power. And when it comes to illegal immigration, that is the most embarrassing issue where we are just not doing anything about it. And it's got to a point where, well, it was always unsustainable, but it's now at a point where it's just a complete joke. 1 in 12 in London is an illegal migrant. Government must do more on deportations, as new estimates suggest more than 1 million people are illegally living in the UK. And just for reference, it is about 730,000 illegal migrants in the UK with that figure. Which, to be honest, makes a lot of sense. If you are coming over illegally, you are going to go where there is an awful lot of population, and a rather large population of migrants especially, and then you can just get lost in the system. This is what I mean, by the way, every time when I say, oh, people come over, if they get caught, they'll be put in a hotel or something like that, but if they just leave and nobody notices, they just get lost in the system, and nothing really gets done about it. And it's got to the point where 1 million people clearly have done that, and 700,000 of them have moved to London. Why? Well, probably because there's an awful lot of communities that are just full of illegal migrants, and nobody does anything about it. This, by the way, with that old interview with Winston Marshall, is why... Oh, sorry, it might have been Steve Edgington. Either way, when Nigel Farage said it's basically impossible to actually deport everyone, it's because it's going to take more than 5 years to find them all. How are you supposed to find over 1 million people in the UK who aren't supposed to be here in 5 years, especially when they're spread around the place? They won't all be in London. Well, we know they're not all in London. It's going to be an absolutely mammoth task, but one that frankly needs to be done, because these people cannot be allowed to get away with, by default, committing crimes in the UK by being here without leave. So London is home to as many as 585,000 illegal migrants. Well, if the equivalent to 1 in 12 of the city's population, they must be using different London population numbers to me, but oh well. According to a previous confidential report, there is mounting concerns over the failure to control Britain's borders and the pressure that places on public services such as schools and the NHS. Why are illegal migrants able to use our publicly funded schools and NHS? Why are they allowed to do that? Let alone the people in hotels who get subsidised private healthcare. Sometimes they have the NHS, but a lot of the time they have private healthcare. Why? Because our government for some reason thinks that is a better option than just kicking them out by default. The use of illegal migrants in the black economy, working in roles such as food delivery drivers, is also a concern. They're also typically unlicensed taxi drivers and things like that. The gig economy has been one that is only a success because the government has done absolutely nothing about illegal migrants. Not only that, but those are probably the more honest ones. A lot of them are probably joining gangs, joining drug cartels. They've come over illegally. They're not going to be nice people. Because why would they bother being nice people? They don't think the law applies to them, because frankly it doesn't. Despite this, no official figures on the scale of the problem are provided by the Home Office, which again makes this even worse. These are estimates. And the Home Office isn't doing investigations into it because it's not an issue that they want to deal with properly, because it's got to be a massive embarrassment. Hence, you need reform in there, because they won't be embarrassed by what they see. They'll see this and say, oh, this was the Uni Party's fault, by the way, never vote for them again. The new estimate has emerged on a study commissioned by Thames Water, obtained by the Telegraph under Freedom of Information style laws for the environment. In total, there are estimated to be more than 1 million illegal migrants in the UK, with 60% of those in the capital. The report suggests most illegal migrants arrived in the UK on work, study or visitor visas and then overstayed, so it's not even the ones crossing the channel. It's people who were actually in the system with their visas, and we've just not bothered to knock on their door and say, get out. You know, you've finished your work, you've finished your study, you're only supposed to be here on a couple of weeks on a holiday, and you're still here. Right, you're being arrested and you're being deported. Can't do it. We just can't do it, because there is absolutely no political will from either the Tories for 14 years or Labour. Which, as I said on Twitter, I'm now going to find it very hard to actually be convinced to vote Tory again. It was already quite hard, but after reading this, I get that there are good people in the Tory party like Robert Jenrick, but how can I trust that a team that he will put together to deliver policy to deal with this is actually going to be successful? You know, how can I trust the Tory party that were fine with the civil service effectively? You know, they'd have rhetoric against them and have the odd bit of policy to try and streamline civil service, but they need to go to war with them. This is a result of either policy from the Tories, well, it kind of is a result of policy from the Tories, or a complete incapability to actually do anything good with migration, which they were incapable of doing, partially because of the CS, but also because they were weak when it came to it. So how can I trust them again? It's going to take quite a while to actually get me in a position where I'd feel even comfortable thinking about it. Migration experts suggested that the figures could be an underestimate, as some of the underlying data dates from 2017, before the surge in the migrants crossing the Channel. Not only that, but the Boris wave as well. I highly doubt that people who came over on the Boris wave have gone back when their visa expires. On Tuesday, the Home Office confirmed 1,000 migrants have crossed so far this year, following 38,816 in 2024, the second highest total on record. Chris Phillip, the Shadow Home Secretary, said the figures in the report were deeply alarming. Again, it asks the question, why was the largest amount of people crossing the Channel under your watch? Having lost control of illegal immigration over the Channel, the Labour government must now urgently start deporting far more illegal immigrants, he said. Again, this just falls flat. It's the second highest because the highest was under Tory government. It is totally unacceptable to have those numbers of illegal immigrants in the UK. The law needs to be looked at so that spurious human rights, modern slavery and asylum claims cannot be used to delay or prevent removals of illegal immigrants. Again, begs the question, you had 14 years. You had 14 years to do something about this. Why didn't you? The report for Thames Water by Edge Analytics, demography and data experts at Leeds Uni aimed to quantify the hidden and transient users of their service to enable them to better meet demand. It based its analysis on academic estimates of illegal migrants nationally, including the respected Pew Research Centre in the US, the London School of Economics, Office for National Statistics, and other research. It then used national insurance registration for non-EU foreign nationals over a 9-year period to estimate the number of irregular migrants in each London borough, which means illegal, because we can't use the word illegal because, oh, no human's illegal. At least that is the leftist look on the thing. So I'm glad to see that the Telegraph have just translated that to what it really means. For the whole of London, it produced a range of 390,355 illegal migrants at its lowest to 585,533 at its highest, with a median figure of about 487,944, with an estimated population of about 7 million. Right, so they were using a different population number to me. I'm assuming that that is a 2017 population. In 2024, 7 years later, it's 8.8 million. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that most of that population rise has come from immigration. How much of it is illegal immigration? Well, I would imagine a lot more than 1 in 12. That would mean 1 in 12 of the capital's population was an illegal migrant. When other areas outside London covered by Thames Water are included, such as Henley, Guildford, Reading, Swindon and Newbury, the range of the number for illegal migrants rises to between 415,568 and 623,351. Again, as I said before, these are just estimates. When it comes to the actual number, very likely it could be higher. Because, well, one, these are numbers that date back to 2017. Two, I would have no doubt in my mind that the number of people on national insurance numbers probably have outstayed their visa by now and not gone home as well. So that would increase the number much as well. So 1 in 12 is actually probably a conservative estimate here. Especially given once again that this was before Boris wave, and again before the surge in migrants crossing the Channel started to happen. Anyway, the article then talks about the Home Office. The Home Office does not publish any comprehensive data estimating the number of illegal migrants in the UK. Only since 2018 has it produced figures on the number of illegal Channel migrants reaching the UK. Again, this is why it's going to be difficult if reform do get in. Because how can you deport people if you don't actually know if they're illegal or not? How do you know who is and isn't illegal? It's going to take more than 5 years to find everyone, let alone deport them. But they got to start somewhere, as Farage says. However, there have been unofficial estimates by insiders over the years. In 2019, David Wood, a former Director General of Immigration Enforcement, said illegal migration was probably running at around 150,000 a year. And bear in mind, this is a problem that's been going on for, years, probably decades. We're looking at millions, we are. The report cites Home Office calculations that between 150,000 and 250,000 foreign nationals fail to return to their home country each year. add on top of that the 30 to 40,000 who cross the channel every year. It is also cites estimates by Migration Watch that there is a net addition to the population of 70,000 irregular, well, they'll definitely say illegal migrants a year, owing to visa overstays, illegal arrivals, and failed asylum seekers. The report notes that there is an estimated further 165,000 legal migrants who are working illegally in the UK economy. However, they were not included in the overall calculation by researchers because they are officially recorded users of water utilities, so not part of the hidden or irregular migrants. As I keep saying, this is all estimates. Like with most of these things, it's probably an underestimate. The amount of migrants we have in the UK just as a whole has been underestimated for years. According to a lot of the supermarkets, the data for the sales that they make shows that, by their estimates, there's not like 66 million people in the UK. There's probably closer to 75, 80 million people. Sorry to blackpill you like this, but at the end of the day, we just got to face the truth. And the truth is that for years and years and years, we have had, frankly, by default, a de facto open borders policy. We don't deport many people. Again, Labour are deporting people, but it's, thousands of people. That's going to take probably over a century to actually deport everyone at that rate, and that's assuming that no one else actually comes in, when in fact people are coming in. There's still a net immigration of illegals to the UK. That's obviously got to stop. This whole thing gets worse, by the way, because then even legal migrants who shouldn't be here are getting away with, well, some of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever seen in my life. A grooming gang abuser is involved in attempts to convert a property into a children's care home in Leeds. Abid Yunus, who was jailed for 2.5 years in 2015 after being convicted of sexual activity with a child, is the owner of a property being converted into a care home. So much wrong with that sentence. Only 2.5 years for being a nonce. Are you kidding me? Why is it? Why is he still here? Planning application, again, vote reform. By their rules, he'd have his British citizenship taken off him if he's a dual national, and he'd get kicked out back to wherever his alternative residency is. Planning applications for a property owned by Yunus show he previously submitted an application to change it to use a 21-bedroom hotel. This was rejected due to parking concerns, but the property was put in for another application in December. A letter seen by GB News was sent to local residents, inviting them to an open day at the property. The author of the letter introduced themselves as the property manager of a home to be set up by QASA Care Services, explaining that the home would be for young children. The property referred to in the letter is the same as the property owned by Yunus. In some planning applications for the property posted on the Leeds Council website, Yunus uses his full name. It lists the proposed change use from a dwelling house to a residential care home. Oh, God, just disgusting. How do we live in a country where this is even remotely happening? Just shouldn't be happening at all. GB News has seen correspondence between councillors and council officials expressing concern at the planning proposal. Omar Farouk approached GB News after publication and told us that neither he nor anyone else involved in the planning application was aware of Yunus's conviction. It's nuts. It's nuts. Why has no one done their due diligence here? Oh, who owns the property? Wow, it's a paedophile? Yeah, we're not turning that into a care home. Farouk said that under the terms of the lease, he would not have been allowed in the property and that they would now withdraw the application. Yeah, only because they've been caught out. But imagine if this went through. Anyway, I think what's worse about all this is that mainstream media will still go ahead and pretend that there's no problem with immigration and how immigration is dealt with, while showing us statistics that show actually there is a bit of a problem. So Tom Carver, who is the data editor and columnist for The Times, he wrote an article, but I'll just go through the Twitter thread, saying, "Are recent immigrants massively overrepresented in Britain's social housing? In a word, no, but that doesn't mean that Britain's social housing is immune from immigration pressures." A thread. Oh, and here's the picture he used. So, people who arrived in the Boris wave from 2020 to 2021, people who arrived within 4 years ago, it doesn't say the number, but that is about 7% of them are in social housing, while obviously the rest of them are all in the private sector. That should be 100% in the private sector, but no, nearly, it's not quite, to be fair, but nearly 1 in 10 people, probably close to 1 in 12 actually, people who arrived here over the Boris wave are in social housing. You go back a few years, 2017 to 2019, not that far away, that's what, 7-8 years ago? That's 9% of those in social housing. Again, they should not be in social housing. The whole point of this thread is to kind of say, this is fine, when in reality it's the meme of the dog with the room on fire. You know, okay, are they massively overrepresented? No, it's not the point though. 7% of them are still in social housing. You go back a few more years and then it's 9%, nearly 10%. You go back even further to 2014, 10 years ago, well, just over 10 years ago, it's 11%. At least you're starting to get a bit more sensible, where I can understand people have lived here for 5 years or so. Some may have tried to become citizens, but even then the citizenship thing's an issue. There's a whole other thread that became Twitter famous the other day of some, well, ex-immigrant, I suppose, now that he's a citizen. But he was saying on Twitter openly, with pictures of his ceremony to become a citizen, that, oh, I thought that it would be cringe and nationalistic, but actually the mayor started speaking in Arabic, so I was very comfortable. And it just made a lot of people think, these people aren't really integrating, are they? Honestly, the issue with immigration is so bad that anyone who tries to put out a picture like this and say this is fine, just not serious at all. I keep seeing this fact get repeated, that nearly half of all London's social housing stock goes to people born outside the UK. In places like Earl's Court, it's about 65%, and the crazy thing is that stat is technically correct. Again, this is all fine, by the way. London is a diverse city. Yes, that is typically what people want to say when they want to say, without sounding cringe and like a chud, London isn't an English city. Some 49% of all household reference persons, fancy name for person filling out the census in the capital, were born overseas, which makes the fact that 48% of all social housing goes to people born overseas seem somewhat less striking. Not really, because it should still be pretty much 0%. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand that there are going to be natural Brits who were born overseas for whatever reason. The mother and father are both British, they lived in, let's say America for 5 years, happen to have a kid over there. I mean, there'll be an anchor baby for America, sure, but also, they'll still be British. But what percentage of people born overseas does that make up in the UK? Reality is that it's probably not even 5%. I can't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but it's a very rare case, and anyone who tries to use it as this representative people born overseas statistic, they're lying. But yet again, it just begs the question, why is my tax money going towards subsidising people who were not born here? Hell, I'm a mega capitalist. I don't think really any of my money should be redistributed. However, well, at least against my will. However, even like half the Labour Party think that this is absolutely ridiculous stat. Why is any social housing going to people born overseas if they're not citizens at the very least? The data, apparently, falls down further when you look at exactly who these people are. The simple truth is that the vast majority of foreign-born social housing tenants have been in Britain for decades. Yeah, okay. Next question, I want specifics. How many have become British citizens? I know the argument that a piece of paper doesn't make you British, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get all that. But if we are looking at aggregate statistics, I want to see them at least make an effort to try and become a citizen before they get any of my money. The funniest thing is, though, is that if you look at all this, the vast majority of people who live in all these sorts of housing came to Britain post-1990. At most, they have been living in the country for 30 years. And I'd like to see a breakdown of the statistics of how many of them have become citizens, how many of them were always British citizens, and how many of them haven't bothered. That is the statistic I'd like to see. But again, I don't care how long they've been living in the country. Foreign-born people without citizenship absolutely should not be in social housing. Shouldn't happen. Or to put it another way, on census day, just 7% of recent arrivals were in social housing, the vast majority were private tenants. This makes sense. Most people here on work and study visas cannot apply for social housing. Yeah, again though, Tom, shouldn't be any of them. What people can apply for social housing? I think I saw the other day, once again from Max Tempers, everyone's follow him on Twitter. But if you can apply for PIP, Personal Independence Payment, effectively disability payment in the UK, then technically you can just bring a spouse over for absolutely no reason. You're an immigrant and you're on PIP because you've lived here for a few years, and all of a sudden you're indefinite leave to remain. You can have indefinite leave to remain if you've lived in the UK for like 5 years on visas. And then, basically at that point, yeah, you can get absolutely all this social housing, all the benefits, you have access to it all, and it's ridiculous. Shouldn't happen. But also, while you're on it and you've got PIP, you can easily just bring a spouse over. and then you can both get social housing, bigger social housing in fact. It's just a mess. The total benefit system is a total mess. And Tom here is saying, oh yeah, nearly 1 in 10 people who came in the last 5 years, they're in social housing. But you know, this is fine, that's okay, don't worry about it. Okay, you say, however, at the end of this, go on, is there some bad news that you think is here? So that was 2021. Well, what has happened since? You'd expect, given most of Britain's latest wave of immigrants, that very few will be eligible for social housing, but something odd has happened. The percentage of new lets going to non-EU nationals has soared since 2021. How? Well, I don't know. Again, apparently 7% is fine, but it goes above 7%, you know, it goes up to nearly 9%. Oh my god, that's terrible. Oh, is it? Why is 7% your bar? I mean, at least thank God you think it can go too far, but my god. Go on. Let's see this next tweet. The answer, I think, is in the number of people who have been granted asylum in the past 4 years, while people receiving asylum are a small share of the overall immigration. They are eligible for social housing. A separate figure also shows non-EU homelessness is soaring too. Yeah, and the thing is as well is that these people that are homeless, they are probably being stuffed in to some of the social housing that refugees have. Honestly, the way that Britain works, effectively what we've accidentally made is effectively a new type of slum for people who just shouldn't be here. There was, again, on Twitter, I don't have it to hand, I'm sorry, but there was a great little clip of, it was from some documentary, of a council worker who was effectively saying, yeah, this is pretty much a normal day in my life, goes to a, again, council home, where there's a family of something like 12 people living in a 3-bedroom house, and it's just getting overcrowded, as you'd expect, and things like that. And effectively, they say, well, the people that have the biggest problem, you know, husband and wife and their 2 kids, I think it was, well, they're getting annoyed with the technically official owner of this social home. And none of them speak English from the looks of it. There needs to be an interpreter. And effectively, the council worker comes to the conclusion that, yeah, they don't really have anywhere else to go, so I'm going to have to put them in emergency housing. And it's like, they get emergency housing, all of a sudden that'll probably be stuffed with other people that he kind of knows, you know, his cousins, his other brothers and sisters, and it probably technically counts as homeless, even if you live there, but do not technically own the place. And it's just not what should be happening in Britain. One, why do people born overseas who barely speak English, why are they able to apply for social housing? Why do they get it? Why do they get a free taxpayer-funded interpreter to get through all this thing to end up with a house subsidised by me? You know, if you pay tax, this is where your money goes to. It's no wonder that more than half the people in the UK actually are net takers of tax money rather than net givers of tax money. It's unsustainable. And you get threads like this that basically say, yeah, it's okay. Oh, but think of all the homeless people who've come here. Why do we have foreign homeless people? Why can we not just deport them? Honestly, we are deporting thousands of people at this point. It's nowhere near enough. Hence, I'm voting reform. Anyway, Tom finishes off by shilling the actual article. Many stats regarding London's overseas social tenants conveniently ignore the fact that most have been here for decades. No, we don't ignore that fact. We just don't care. Doesn't matter if they've been here for decades. You should not have access to social housing as a foreigner. The only way you should is if you have been naturalised and get citizenship. And the citizenship needs to be way, way, way harsher than it is now. There is no way that someone on Twitter should be posting, oh, the ceremony's probably going to be cringe, and get a citizenship. Why would you join the nation if you're not going to like how the nation makes you a citizen? That is step 1 of becoming a citizen, is actually having love for the nation. You do not have love for the nation if you think that the nation is cringe for making you a citizen. It's just basic common sense. Anyway, he goes on, but that doesn't mean our social housing already strained is immune to pressures from a large influx of refugees. People who've been living here for decades. Why are there immigrants living here for decades who are not naturalising? You know, again, we need to look into how many of them become citizens. It's very important, that part. Because I do not see a reason, given that skilled immigration should mean, oh, they come over here, and unless they're working in a permanent role, they shouldn't be here for that long. But I'm thinking back in the 80s when my dad was I wasn't born, this was before my time, I've only heard stories. But he immigrated to Sweden, and it was only for a 6-month contract. And that, ideally, is what most high-skilled immigrants should be. It's there to fill a backlog while we train or, you know, fund training for people to take those jobs after they're gone, and maybe even shadow the immigrants who are here working those jobs so that they get on-the-job experience with experienced people like that. That could be a massive benefit from immigration, but that's not how it works. As it turns out, instead, 1 in 10 of them, nearly, who've come over since 2020, again, actually, those stats were from 2021. Ever since then, it's gone up. It is actually pretty much 1 in 10 people who've come over have social housing. Why? Oh, because they're asylum seekers. Well, given that they're just given a green check when they come in, most of the time, and if they don't, they just get lost in the system. Of course most of them end up in, well, not most of them, of course an awful lot of them end up in social housing. Of course 1 in 10 people, nearly, are in social housing, coming here since 2021. That is a absolutely massive problem. I can't believe I've just been "this is fined" by someone who, again, just shows us that the stats are actually horrific. Every time we look into this issue, it just seems to get worse. Worse and worse and worse and worse. No wonder Reform are winning polls at this point, and they're probably only going to get more popular as more of these statistics come out. And there's no way that the government can hide from it. Anyway, I think that's enough blackpilling for today, so it's shill time. Right, over on the Worcester Club, next Monday it's Antiquity Stream. We're coming back with a vengeance with it. We're carrying on with the Peloponnesian Wars. Please do come along to that if you're interested. Also then on Tuesday we've got Tosh News. Do come along to that if you want to see us do a newscast and react and comment and analyse the biggest stories of the past 2 weeks. Then on Friday it's going to be Laughing at the Guardian with some whamming, so do come along to that as well. If you want to support the channel, the best thing to do that is free is to subscribe, like, leave a comment telling me what you think about all of these horrendous statistics, because I really need a stiff drink, but I can't have another one for about a week, because I dedicated myself to Dry January. And if you think I deserve even more, then you can become a member for £2 a month, or you can also send me super chats and super thanks if you want to, in any of the comment sections or in any of the streams that I do as well. Anyway, with that is everything I had for you for today, so once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.